Hello people, welcome to another dose of Drew. And today on Sunday Sharpenings, we have the Pocket Sharpener Shootout. Anyway, best audio effects I have right there. So first things first, we have one diamond, one CBN, and one alumina, or as they like to say, artificial sapphires. So, which I hate to say it shows this. This just looks cooler when you say it. But anyway, as long as you're talking about alumina, the white stuff is artificial sapphires, same as the black stuff. All right. But let's get into it. This is pocket sharpeners. This is something to take your knife, you can carry it in your pocket and you can sharpen it. And while this is not diamond, it will take most steels. Even we'll get into that a little bit. We're still going to go through the damn nice categories: design, aesthetics, mechanics, noteworthy points, intended purpose, cost, value ratio, expectations, and possible requests. But really, we're going to talk most about how these perform and what's different about them and what overall I recommend for general purpose. And we'll get to that all around. So first things first, Spyderco Double Stuff, the EZE-lap pocket, and the Fallkniven. I forget what the name of this. What this like DC something? It's something. They have letter name alphanumeric combinations that they name their stuff by. But this is the one that does not have the diamonds in the medium, the rough, and then this this is the finer of them. I got that for a reason. We'll get to that in a moment. All right, so first things first. What do they do? What is this? I'm going to get into the grits on the rough. We'll go to the rough side first. The roughest of them all is the Spyderco. This is about a 400 grit CBN. This thing does damage, and I mean that in a good way. This will quickly put an edge back on. This is the fastest cutting easily of them all. The CBN is pretty much as hard as diamond. I believe diamond's a 10 on the most, with some types of diamond being slightly above that. CBN is somewhere around 9.9 to 9.95 or something like that, or 9.95 to 9.9. It's almost as hard as diamond. There's some other things when it comes to thermal conductivity and stuff that it's really good for industrially. Diamond is massively thermal conductive. It is not a heat sink. It transmits heat basically directly to what it is, and in doing so heats up, and it actually has an oxidizing temperature. Where it'll start reacting and all sorts of other stuff, where the carbon basically can burn off, where the cubic boron nitride has other stuff. The EZE-lap is diamond. It is a diamond side along with the alumina. And we'll get into the grits on the other side. And this is, of course, the very thick, let me see if I can get it, alumina side of that. There's some weird gluing. But that's a fairly thick. This is about a medium. We'll get to that in a minute. As we get to the grits, it's an unusual one. But just to go through, usually medium on this stuff means about a 700. So this is about a 400. This is about a 600. This is somewhere around the 500 mark. This isn't as rough as, but it's still fair. They call it a medium, but it's rougher than the 600. It's not as, doesn't cut as, it doesn't feel as, it feels rougher than the 400. That's just the nature of its slightly open, porous, vitrified sort of bits. But it is only just, it may be smoother. Where it's been used a lot, it feels just slightly smoother. I would put it as close to a 500 yet, or a really fine 400 if this is a rough. So there's that. It doesn't cut as fast. And on the other side, the Fallkniven is about as smooth as the Spyderco, maybe just a little bit less. The EZE-lap is actually the coarsest of them. As far as the design and stuff goes, this one is the most basic diamond and alumina. Straight up, you do have some edge that you can use, and the edge of the diamond has some cutting. It's just not smooth. It just has diamond on it. This one is probably the easiest to use due to its wide size. If you are used to doing something like that, where you have your knuckle there to help keep it flat and you kind of are pulling in and using that as your base, this is really the right size and style. The width and everything for either side works really good and without over cramping. And for my hand size, this is just right. This is almost too small, but it does make for an easy grip as well. The Spyderco is very much designed to do lots of stuff. Has the angle right there so that you can get into serrated edges, and same thing goes for the polishing. Has the hook so you can, awls, fish hooks, all that sort of stuff can all be ran in the little groove and just polished up really nicely after maybe a little bit on the CBN or something. It is, however, the heaviest of them, and it is just almost too long. And we'll get into some runners up and some other things that I've ran into, but only after we've gone through these a little bit more. The aesthetics of these, honestly, they're about the same. The Spyderco kind of looks a little cool, but to be perfectly honest, it's hard to fit in an actual pocket. They do come with pocket slips. This right here is the Spyderco to fit in your pocket, very close to the size of the things, and it would fit in your pocket, but it is actually the largest. Quite honestly, the EZE-lap is the bulkiest and most herkin of all the slips, and it's massive compared to this. Is the easiest one to put in your pocket, and then the slip is probably the least. But one cool thing about the slips is they are all a nice suede leather. They would, in the EZE-lap is a little bit of finish to it. It's got a little bit of polish to the leather as opposed to suede. But either way, they'll take some compound. You could rub some compound into one of these and you have yourself a strop, especially something like the Spyderco. You could easily rub some compound or something in there, or have a little bit of compound in the slip, rub it on there, and you have yourself an outstanding little strop to go with there. And you're really, as far as like a working edge that you can polish and then strop, like pull the burr down and then get it, you'll have a really nice 400 or so grit edge from that. And it's the easy 400 or so grit edge that's in polished done. The EZE-lap is actually a little bit smoother on the diamond and rougher on the aluminum, and the Fallkniven's the other way. So let's get into the mechanics. The biggest discrepancy from the grinding side to the polishing side is the Spyderco. This is about a 400. This is about a 3 micron, maybe a 2 micron. It's the most polished of these three. It's really high up there. It's probably about a 5 or 6K, I would say, honestly, in grit. And it may even be slightly more than that, but it's right in that 2, maybe 3 maybe 2 micron polish. The Fallkniven's probably closer to a 3 or 4. It's just and maybe it just needs to be broken in a little bit. It just doesn't seem to produce quite the crisp edge that the vitrified Spyderco does, as far as the polishing edge. And the rough side, it doesn't cut as fast as the diamond or CBN, let's just be honest. On super steels, it will cut some heavy duty ones. I have taken, well, quite honestly, it took care of the crew wear pretty good. Just to give you an idea, this one's really nice to go around. Oh, here, we'll keep it elevated. Here. That one's a fun one here. Anyway. I'll save that for later for some of this. But that one came off the Fallkniven, which is a pretty darn good edge, I have to admit. I did another one that was on the EZE-lap. That was on the Civivi Cubit. This is the S35 VN Cubit. All right. Pretty good. All of these were then stropped on a 1/4 micron diamond afterwards, so it was the same shop, same grit, and all that sort of stuff. And where did my... Is this it? No. We shall be better prepared next time, but this time we have not. I actually did take this on the Spyderco to a fantastic edge. Which, I want to make sure you guys can see this. I'm trying to get it to where you can. If you're like, oh, anyone can... Okay, let's see if I can get this in a way that you guys can see. This is the hardest part of this, by the way. Oh, look at tears, yes. So, how about we go near the balance point? Yeah, it's sharp, guys. Anyway, so that does, they all sharpen extraordinarily well. Little bit finer off of the Spyderco. And to be perfectly honest, if it's not chipped or not needing a lot of grind, the Spyderco is kind of, the in-between part doesn't work as well. The EZE-lap is better. The 600 grit on here will bring an edge back. And this is closer to like a 2500 or 3000 grit, right? Probably somewhere around the 6 or 7 micron. As far as, it's more closer to the fine instead of the ultra fine. And it cuts fast and puts a really, really crisp edge on there that you can then take to one of the other ultra fines, which these are pretty much ultra fine. I would just say in my experience, the Fallkniven was a little bit less ultra fine than the Spyderco, but just on the tiniest amounts. They still both produce an extremely fine edge. And the EZE-lap was noticeably faster cutting, but also not as crisp and fine an edge when it came to the final cut. So it is more like a 600 grit and a fine, which quite honestly, being closer together like that makes this more useful as a field sharpener. It's small size and ability to bring an edge back from doling, less so chipping. You could do it, but with the small size and stuff, this is a sharpened pocket sharpener, and they really make it go that way. You could have, with this slightly rougher, you could have like a 2 or 3 micron paste or a 1 micron and still get a really good edge. It's fantastic. But this one's pretty decent for what it is, and it will take, what's that good one? There we go. We'll just do an RPM 9. Like, it will definitely allow you to, right, crispy up an edge and all that sort of stuff. See if we can get this in here so you can get it up there. Try to do it via camera sucks. There we go. Anyway, so yeah, a couple of us. It does it. It's just it's really hard to do on camera, you guys. I really wish I could tell you I could do this better on camera, but I can't. You know, even just doing that and then coming straight to something like, oh, hey, look, I just ran that once on each side. It's cuts it a little rough. I don't know if you can see it. It's still cutting it. It's just a little bit rough. It's not as fine as the other ones. And that's a paper towel. It's hard to cut that smooth. You need a really, really fine edge at a low micron count to really cut that smooth. Not to cut it, but to cut it smooth. And these ones, this will produce a fine edge on just about anything. I mean, quite honestly, like it'll take something like Rex 45. It'll take something like RPM 9. It'll even take some S35VN, though, as you start getting into some of these harder steels like that, MagnaCut, and MagnaCut might be one that's about at the limit. Its niobium carbides are small. But yeah, you can really get quite a bit of edge on it. So the mechanics, you know, the aesthetics, they may or may not look cool to you in the slipper without. The Spyderco looks really cool. The EZE-lap looks like it doesn't deliver as much performance and value as it does. And the Fallkniven just, honestly, it doesn't look like it brings a whole lot new to the table despite being an outstanding little stone. So, and the mechanics of it with the wide, the width of the Fallkniven and the length that's very similar to the EZE-lap, you get more surface area while still being easy to hold. You give it up by if you go with the alumina instead of the diamonds. They have ones that have like gold knives, but most of the ones that are diamond stone have something like this on the other side instead of this. So I would love to, I may try and find one that's got like the 600 grit diamond and this same thing here. That would actually be a fantastic. It's not the one I got for this. Mostly to try this because it's one of the few, and I wanted to directly compare this with the others. This doesn't cut as fast as the diamonds, but it produces a very nice edge when it does. And on the lower carbide steels, on things like CPM 154, or all sorts of, just to give you a quick idea on something like this, like it does a good job. You can really start to get an edge off of it, which is really fantastic. And being single stones, I want to do a quick shout out. Being single stones as opposed to something like I love these SharpPal as credit card ones. These are great as a sharpening system to take with you, but unless say the 600 grit, instead of getting all this on the side, get something like this, right, across there, where you have now some alumina or ceramic poking up out the other side. Unless it gets something like that, these are not a complete system. You don't get that. You can get a good edge, especially on the 1200 grit and all that, the 12 microns. You can still get a really good working edge, but it does not have that extra crispiness that vitrified ceramic just brings to the table. There's lots of reasons for it. We can, if you want to hear some of the deeper dive into vitrified ceramic versus not and what that is, please let me know. That would be a fun video to make. For 12 views, maybe I'll do it. But in the meantime, it would just be a fun thing, but it would take a bit of research. So if I'm going to dive into it, it would be quite the dive. But with the smallest gap between the rough and the fine side, this one is the EZE-lap is very useful. As far as noteworthy points, something that's very useful to have in your pocket as a general sharpener on small blades. This thing is, again, I'm going to use the Kizer Comet here as a stand-in for a lot. Like, this is perfect. It is enough size, and it would produce a ridiculously good edge. It's working. It cuts. In fact, now I'm curious if this thing's not even close to finished. What can it do? Oh, and that was off camera. Very rough on the pull there, I gotta tell you. But still pretty sharp for as rough as that is. Anyway, so it really works very well on that. The Fallkniven is good for a lot of the same reasons. It does quite honestly seem to be just a little bit more fragile, may or may not be. It just has that feel to it. That might just be me, because I haven't seen anything that actually does that. But you can get, pretty good. It works good. You just get a little bit of finessing on it. And as far as touching up, like something that's already crispy and dull, any of these do a fantastic job of that. The vitrified ceramic is one of the better materials. And this is white alumina, vitrified white alumina. Essentially, it's been cooked past the sharpening stone stage to where it starts to get glassy. These things start to kind of melt into an amorphous solid and melt together. And it does not only fine up the grit a little bit, but it also tends to make a smoother surface that's not a bunch of little grits, but it's kind of more wavy instead of rough things all crammed together. There's a lot to it, but it's fun to learn. And You know, this is pretty close. This is about a 500, but this one is really, really fine. It goes way, way down. If this was quite honestly, if this was the same fine and medium side like the EZE-lap, this would be probably the better stone. It's not the large gap between the medium and the ultra fine really makes this a pocket honing stone. You can bring an edge back if it's rolled over or you see something, you can unroll an edge and then spend some time really polishing it up and maybe even strop it. But this is really just a honing stone. And it does it very well. The Spyderco has the biggest gap between its rough side and its smooth side. It also has the most ingenious design as far as trying to bring the most functionality to a single stone, being able to do, it's the only one of these that out of the box is really geared to doing, to being able to on the fly and on the go, do something like serrated or an awl or any sort of puncturing tool like a fish hook and awl or anything like that with the thing. It's the one that's really most versatile for all of the different stuff it can sharpen. That being said, if you don't sharpen all of that stuff, it's kind of a moot point, right? If you only sharpen your knives, that's really cool, but it means that there's one side that's easier to run your knife on, the other one it has something that you can bump up against. So you may not always be able to get all your blade onto it from that side. So there is some downsides to that design that mean you're going to unevenly wear down the stone from a particular direction. Right? For me, it's irrespective. I do not mind too much as long as you're not using something that's bolstered. You could even do kitchen knives on this. I tried it. It does work. And it has a fantastic vitrified ultrafine on it. And that ultrafine produces a really good edge. It is quite fantastic. And in fact, that's the noteworthy point on the Spyderco. It's probably the most versatile, which really matters only if you plan on sharpening a lot of different stuff. You pay a small price for that versatility, and that you actually get limited in a particular thing like sharpening knives, that you can't use it in as many ways as these other stones. So by being more versatile, it kind of limits you in a very big use of the knife. And it being Spyderco, just so you know, the way that theirs are set up, you never have a problem. So Spyderco knives don't have the problem other knives do, generally speaking. And that's really, the intended purpose of these things are advertised as pocket sharpening stones. You're able to put these in your pocket. You're able to carry these around. These are portable and able to be used that way. This is really fantastic. This SharpPal system can go in a backpack so you can take with you. So if you're at camp and you need to really resharpen or something, these will take you from a chipped or a rolled or all sorts of stuff to a brand new edge. They're also heavy and really hard to carry in just a pocket. These are not, and they can be a single stone. And in fact, with the SharpPal system here, which is currently my favorite pocket system, I'm just going to tell you, this is currently my favorite system to use to sharpen an edge on a pocket knife, simply because it takes my fingers out of the way. I can pull it out at any time. I can sharpen a pocket knife in 10-15 minutes to ridiculously good edges. The only thing it's missing is a ceramic. We'll get to that in a minute. As far as these go, this is a one-stop shop. I can take, if I'm cutting boxes and my blade dulls, it will not take many passes on any of these ceramics to bring me to a crispy edge that will start zipping through that cardboard again, or something like that. Absolutely fantastic for it. The cost to value ratio, I mean, honestly, none of these are particularly expensive. Spyderco, I believe, may have been the most expensive again, but by a small margin. These are all relatively cheap. Again, I think this Spyderco on Amazon was around $50, the most expensive by far. The rest were between 20 and 40. So they do pretty good. It's not a bad cost. And for if you're just like, if you're one of those people like, I don't want a huge sharpening system, I sharpen my knives once in a while and I put them to a good crisp edge, and I'm okay with it because I don't, that's the use case you have and how often you use your knife for those purposes. This is great. This is fantastic for that. If this is your base camp system, this is what goes in your pack. And then if you're ever, you have a way to maintain an edge in an emergency situation. You also can just have it out on a camera. You're like, you know what? I don't want to lose three things. There's going to be one sharpening stone out there just for the trip, right? Everything's all sharpened before you go, and it'll just be there. You can put one of these in the console of the vehicle, or in the pack, or again, it can just stay at camp and you can have it ready if that's your use case. These all can take pretty much most modern steels. The biggest limitation being the Fallkniven not being diamonds, but they have diamond options. But it will. I mean, this is ridiculously good abrasives that is really hard and will take down most steels. You have to have some ridiculous new steel. You got 14 C28N, even 20 CV D2. These will sharpen it all day long. And really, that's kind of it. There's one thing that I am going to say on a little bit of a note. I did bring up some other honing pings. One is because you can take it off of the WorkSharp Pro, it is able to be used in one hand. It is slightly long for it. For my hands, it is just at the edge of what's comfortable for me to use. However, you can use this as just a handheld pocket, so to speak, honing stone. And the WorkSharp ceramics are actually quite freaking good. In fact, this one is from the WorkSharp Pro. One that I have been absolutely surprised by is this replacement one. I'm going to grab it for their, I believe it's like the bench stone or something like that. I've seen several people that use a version that uses this stone. You can get this for others. It also glues. I don't know how that goes. This is honestly the finest vitrified ceramic I've ever used. It is finer than the Spyderco Ultra Fine. Noticeably so. This produces a crisper edge. This is closer to the 8001 micron, I would bet, as far as its smoothness and the kind of edge it puts on there. It is just a ceramic, which means, my goodness, it's it's just a honing stone, but you can take it from the Spyderco to this stone and make it noticeably crisper and smoother as it goes through something like a paper towel or something that's very, very sensitive to a narrower apex and smoother edge. So as a side note, this little replacement thing is just I think it's like $20 or less on the WorkSharp. And it is a ceramic plate that is easily the finest vitrified ceramic I've personally ever used. You can even see right there, like it kind of shines in the light. Like this side even may do it. This is the really unused side. It doesn't quite shine when it hasn't been used. I've only been using one side to see, but once it breaks in, it almost, like you can see, it gets smooth. That break-in is crazy. I haven't broken in the Spyderco as much, but this one just seems to have a slightly finer grit. So if you want the absolute crispiest, I'll get that word right one of these days, crispiest edges off a ceramic, the WorkSharp can actually be used after the Spyderco to get a slightly thinner apex, crisper edge, and smoother edge. So that's an important piece to note right there, because it does work. Quite honestly, I often will take this or both, take the EZE-lap and this right after the sharp palette and get some of the crispiest edges I've ever been able to. It is just, do I have anything left I can cut out of this one paper towel I brought? This here is the wrong one. We will go with this is the Spyderco UK penknife in Magna Cut Salt. This was done using that method. Hand sharpened on the Sharp Pals, then honed on the EZE-lap on the fine side, then the Spyderco Ultra Fine, and then finally finished on the Work Sharp. And this is just for a hand job. It is not, ouch, not bad. It is, and let's see if I can have it hanging and slice. Not tear, slice. Hanging paper towel. You guys can't see it. Damn. Hanging, like, that one tore, too small. But anyway, it's a extremely fine edge. It's, for the first one, it's pretty nice. Paper towels are a great little bit. You can do some of the fun ones. One of my favorites is the Willet, again, shaved paper. The bite in there as it goes through. See if I can actually do it on camera for you all this time. All right. So you do it fine on the edge. All right. Just running it smooth until. So yeah, there's quite a bit of bite. It is really, really good, and it produces a fantastic edge. Not a bad little system, but it still takes a whole lot. And that really brings me to the requests. I don't know if there's a way to get this. I would love to have a single system. If there was a way, it would be some mixture of all of these. I would love a CBN in this, about this CBN for a rough side, but at about this same grit, not quite the 400. And then the EZE-lap fine on the smooth side, and that would actually be just the right gap for me. That would be closer to about a 600 grit that would be able to, could grind out some stuff, but we'll put a good solid edge on it, and then we'll put it down to about a 3000 grit, which you can then strop or something like that. But it is a perfectly fine and useful edge. And there really is, the closest thing to that is the EZE-lap. And with its slip at low price, diamonds, which will cut anything, and a slightly rougher ceramic, this is actually one of my first choices and top recommendation from this thing. It's cheap, it's small enough to hold. If you're using this technique, hopefully you know how to do it and how to avoid cutting your fingers and how to use it and what you need to do and all that sort of stuff. It comes with a leather slip. It's relatively inexpensive compared to the rest. You can use the slip as a strop, both rough and smooth, so you can double-side it if you want, and you could have something that will give you a fantastic edge. And quite honestly, if you only have a couple of pocket knives and you only sharpen them once in a while, this will work for a long time. If you have the skills to use the technique, the EZE-lap is actually pretty fantastic. Biggest downside, the edges still are a little rough. The diamonds haven't knocked down, so running it on the edge still produces a slightly uneven grit pattern. If that's where you're going, it does make it cut a little faster. So, trade off here, trade off there. It does maintain a slightly good cutting ability, slightly better cutting ability than normal 600s, I would say. But the trade-off is a slightly uneven scratch pattern. That really doesn't matter once you start smoothing it out. Smoothing it out on the 3000 side, on the fine side. But it is what I would recommend number one. Number two is the Spyderco. Again, the CBN really is the winner for the Spyderco as well as the Ultrafine. You can get an extraordinary working edge. The CBN will tackle any steel, no problem. And the vitrified ceramic for pretty much anything short of, I don't know, Maximat, Rex 121, 15V. Some of these really high carbide volume steels, and I mean higher vanadium only, VC3 or V3C or whatever it's called. I mean those types. High in those types of carbides. It will still produce a fairly crisp edge on anything lower. The ceramic's really good for that. And I put this number two, which of course means the Fallkniven is bringing up the rear. But here's what I'm going to say about the Fallkniven. This is the best form factor of them all. This is the right size to hold. It's just the right thinness. And it is the proper size to fit on a knuckle and have all of that flat spot so it doesn't torque, while it doesn't roll up and down on there. Your whole knuckle is there to keep it torsionally stable while you're, right? If you're pushing down on it, it doesn't stay. While these other ones can tend to turn, especially the EZE-lap, being small as it is, the torsional stability on my finger is actually a little bit less. So, though it is bringing up the rear, a fair amount of it being a known weakness, which is the non-diamond rough side, the form factor for this one is the real star of the show. It is the right size. And in fact, when it comes, a lot of the time when I'm coming to grab one of these and I just want to do a hone, like I'm grabbing a stock blade or something that hasn't been resharpened, or if I just need to do a quick, like I'm getting ready to do some plants and I just need to do a quick hone, I actually grab this one because it's the most comfortable to use. And I can sit here and just roll up and, oh yeah. You know, I can really just all of a sudden put a pretty decent edge on it. And something like 14C28N, anything that's like, it's not the kind of thing that I would use for something like S90V, but most of the time, honestly, I'm not trying to just hone an S90V edge back into sharpness. If my S90V is dull, it's a whole nother process. So I can do a quick touch up and it works. You can see it was taking, that's a darker line was there. It cuts steel quite quickly while producing a fantastic edge. Do I have anything left out of this here paper towel just to demonstrate that? Since you heard me use it. All right. For an incomplete sharpening, that's actually pretty good. Probably dulled it down a little bit because I just recently did it. So it is number 3 in this 3-part, in this contest of 3. But that doesn't mean it's a loser. And quite honestly, for anyone who's used one of these pocket stones and the technique, it can get uncomfortable after a while. So having a good form factor that you can reliably and comfortably switch around is actually really cool. This is more comfortable using, so I tend to use it more. It's not the best one to use to get the best edge, but it does a good job of providing a good edge, and it's the most comfortable one that does it. And so, quite honestly, you may not want this one, but Fallkniven does have a diamond-coated one, and that might be a better one for you. And that's something to really think about, because the size is fantastic. But for overall pocket sharpening as a one-stop shop, it is less versatile, less capable, and overall not as good at its job as the other two. This is relative here. It's still better than just about any other pocket sharpener out there. It's still one of the better ones. It's just the lesser of these 3. So I'm going to put, there's really no request on there. The request I would have would be something that was a mix of all these. Something more like the Spyderco, but really this form factor, the CBN on this side, and the fine on the other side would actually be an incredible mix. I would really, really like that. But it won't give you the super crisp of the ultra fine, but it would give you, in my opinion, a better working edge. But that is going to be it. So to cap it all off, EZE-lap number 1. It has the closest range. The grits are closest together. It does come with a slip that gives you the ability to make it into a strop, and it does so very well. Next is the Spyderco. It is probably the most versatile, but strangely enough, that versatility does actually hinder it just a little bit in its capability as a knife sharpener alone, but it does also have the slip that will give you the ability to turn it into a strop as well, and it does have the ultra fine, and that extra versatility, if you need it, actually would put it in number 1 over the EZE-lap, though you could make the EZE-lap work if you had to. And of course, bringing up the rear, but only in this lofty group, is the Fallkniven 1. That is probably the most comfortable and easiest to use, both in thickness, weight, and everything else. It just has the slowest cutting speed, and it is probably just the hardest to swap from this directly to this without just grinding a lot of steel. And that's kind of the motto of all these. You're going to be using quite a few passes to go from the rough to the fine to the polishing side. It's just going to take a lot. There's not a lot of grit steps in between. So that's how it is. It wasn't what I expected. I was actually going in with the Spyderco as a favorite, and the EZE-lap kind of just won me over. If I had to pick one that I was going to use as a pocket slip, it would be this one. This would be my pocket sharpener to go with. I can go with a slightly faster cutting but rougher ceramic, and then just have the strop, which it's a sheath and slip would let me do. I can still use it with my Sharpal set. Just use the ceramic to, if I want to grind a whole new edge on these and then use the ceramic, I can, and strop it. And then any new side, I can either just take it to the 600 if it needs it, or just continue to hone it on there. Or go one more step and just take it from the EZE-lap straight to the work sharp, which is what I have done in the past. And so it is my most recommended choice for this use case. If you need more versatility, or you don't care about the diamonds because you don't use that many of those steels, but you do care about the comfort, then the Fallkniven is more. If you need the versatility and you're like, I actually like the 400 and then the working edge that provides by then knocking the burr off, and while it doesn't push cut, it does slicey dicey, then the Spyderco is number 1. But for overall pocket sharpening and honing that you can fit in your pocket, it's going to be durable, it's easy to fit in almost any pocket, it's small, it's light, and will still get the job done, the EZE-lap wins hands down. All right, so that's going to be the end of that video. This video here, EZE-lap wins the pocket sharpener shootout, but for this particular use case, and the rest have their points as well. So go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like, be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.